Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the September 23rd, 2020 Pittsburgh Board of Public Education of Pittsburgh, and I said that already, and the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit, the virtual legislative meeting. Would everyone please rise to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll begin first this afternoon with the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. Mr. Weiss, can we please have a roll call vote? Or just to see who's here, sorry, roll call.
Mr. Carter,
I want to say reluctant.
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Here.
Ms. Falls,
Present.
Gallagher,
Here.
Mrs. Harmon,
Here.
Kennedy,
Present.
Talafero,
Here.
Mr. Udine, Mr. Udine, Ms. Wilson.
Here,
I don't know if Mr. Udine is on, but eight members answered.
all right, thank you. I think you're correct. I don't see him on yet, Mr. Weiss. All right, so thank you so much. Would the board members please turn to the minutes from August 26, 2020? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? All right, hearing none, I'd like to have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the August 26th legislative meeting for the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Carter made the motion. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Okay, that was Ms. Falls. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any noes? All right, the minutes are approved as presented. There are no items for the committee report on education for the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit this month. The committee report on business finance that includes agenda items 24.01 through 26.07 is before you. Are there any questions or comments that were not answered at agenda review?
What?
Is that a question? Am I hearing a question? I guess not. All right. If there's no further questions or comments, may I please have a motion in a second to approve this report?
So
So
moved,
moved.
Jerry.
Second.
Okay, that was Mrs. Kennedy and Mr. Carter. Oh, at least that's what it sounded like to me. All right, all in favor of this, please, of approving this? Say aye.
Isn't this a roll call? Isn't this a roll call vote?
Ooh, let me see.
Get a roll
You're
call.
absolutely correct. It just would be so nice to just go aye on this. You're right, man.
I
This
agree.
would be nice to get it over with. Go ahead, Mr. Weiss.
Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls, Ms. Falls,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Gallagher,
Aye.
Mrs. Harmon,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Talafero,
Yes.
Mr. Udine on yet?
No, he's not.
Okay. Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
the vote is unanimous, 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Item 27.01 is the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit Personnel Report. Are there any questions or comments on this report? All right, hearing none, may I have a motion and a second to approve this report, please?
So moved, Terry.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Carter, thank you. Mr. Weiss, we'll have a roll call on this, please.
Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Gallagher,
Yes.
Ms. Harmon,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Delafaro,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes. Okay, that's approved unanimously, Mr. Weiss?
Unanimously, yes.
Okay, thank you. Item 28.01 is the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit's Financial Travel Report for August 2020. Are there any questions or comments on this report? All right, hearing no further questions or comments, I'd like to have a motion and a second to adjourn. Didn't everyone
So
jump up?
moved.
Okay, thank you.
I was giving someone else a chance.
Second.
Was that Ms. Falls?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, on this vote, we don't need a roll call. We can say aye. All those in favor of adjourning this meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And thank you all very much.
Thank
The
you.
meeting is adjourned. I would like to take time to thank Mrs. Bear, Ms. Bear, for being here and handling all the matters of this intermediate unit. Thank you so much, Ms. Bear.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you, Ms. Bear.
Mr. Odine is on now.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to now call the September 23rd, 2020 virtual meeting of the Pittsburgh Public Schools to order. Mr. Weiss, can we please have a roll call?
Carter,
Here.
Ms. Edwards, Ms. Edwards, Ms. Falls,
Present.
Edwards is here.
okay, thank you, Ms. Edwards. Mr. Gallagher,
Here.
Mrs. Harmon,
Here.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Present.
Delafaro,
Here.
Mr. Udine,
His audio's coming in.
Udine, are you on yet?
He's here. He just has to unmute.
Okay, we'll mark him as present since it's here. Thank you.
Here.
Thank you. All members present.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. At this time, I'd like to ask Mrs. Kennedy to please share our core beliefs and commitments.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. 1, we will educate all children to their highest level of academic achievement. 2, we will provide a safe and orderly environment for all students and employees. 3, we will provide efficient and effective support for all students, families, teachers, and administrators. 4, we will distribute resources in an efficient and equitable manner to address the needs of all students to the maximum extent feasible. And 5, we will improve public confidence and encourage strong parent community engagement in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy. All right, at this time, would board members please turn to the minutes? Today, we'll be approving the minutes for the August 26th legislative session. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? All right, hearing none, I would like to have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the August 26th legislative session.
So moved, Terry.
Second, Veronica.
All right, it's properly moved and seconded. Let's see, do we have to do this one? Yeah, we can do an aye on this. So all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 All right, motion has carried. And now I'd like to read the executive session statement. In addition to executive sessions announced at the legislative meeting of August 23rd, the board met virtually in executive sessions on September 9th, September 16th, and immediately before this legislative meeting to discuss various personnel matters that may include, but are not limited to, administrative vacancies and positions open and closed. This board does not vote at executive sessions. The committee report on education is before you, submitted by myself, Sylvia Wilson, the chairperson of this committee, and my committee members. The report includes agenda items 5.01 through 8.14. At this time, I would call on Dr. Dwyer, who has some additional information on one of the items.
Thank you, Madam President. For item 6.12, the company name is RMC Research Corporation, and the not to exceed cost is $17,000.
Okay, and since this was just being presented, is there any questions or comments on this before we move forward? All right, hearing none. To my knowledge, there were no items that were pulled for further discussion on the committee of report on education. But at this time, I would ask if there's any board member who may still have a question or comment on any of the sections of this report on education. All right, then hearing none, could I please have a motion and a second to approve the Education Committee report?
So moved, Devin.
Second, Terry.
Okay, properly moved and seconded by Ms. Talaferro and seconded by Mrs. Kennedy. Mr. Weiss, could we please have a roll call vote on the committee report on education?
Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Gallagher,
Yes.
Ms. Harvin,
Yes on the report as a whole, no on 5.04 because of the way the grant money is going to be used. Thank you.
thank you.
Ma'am.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Talaferro,
Yes.
Jardine,
Abstain.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Okay, the report's approved 801 and 504 is approved 711.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Weiss. We're now going to move on to the committee report on business and finance that is before you, submitted by Mr. Kevin Carter, chairperson in his committee. The report includes agenda items 10.01 through 12.05. And at this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Joseph, who has some additional information.
I believe that the placeholders that were, that is for, I will defer to Ms. Capretta for those updated items. I don't have those updated items handy. I know that the walk-on from last week was submitted to the agenda, which was the general obligation bonds, but for the placeholders for heater and Never Press, I would defer to Ms. Capretta for the exact amounts.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Joseph. Ms. Capretta, go ahead.
I'll be right with you. One
Certainly.
second.
Certainly.
While Ms. Capretta is
Thank
getting
you.
on, is it possible that Debbie can make the screen sharing a little larger?
I'm not sure, but you've asked. So while you've asked the question, if it's possible, she'll do it. Ms. Capretta, you ready now?
No, ma'am, I am not, and I apologize for this. This is my doings. I've. But anyway, so please just bear with
Okay.
me.
Sure.
I'm trying to find this right now.
Thank you, Deborah.
The Kemper. Miss Wilson, I'm gonna have to ask for a few moments.
Okay, Ms. Wilson. In the meantime, could Mr. Joseph provide a financial update related to COVID?
So these were items that we were going to update in subsequent board meetings, but as of right now, similar to what we provided with the board, our current situation in terms of if we're looking at the cost that we spent, we know that we spent upwards of $11 million in technology, and we have a safety grant that was over $1 million that was spent specifically on health and safety items, particularly PPE, partitions, cleaning solutions. It looks like on our financial forecast that we've bounced back a little bit. It looks like the revenues have caught up on the real estate side. So it's kind of a seesaw effect. We're kind of trying to figure out, we've reached out to the city to try to narrow down what's going on, see if there's any delay in us receiving our remittance that would lead to that kind of lag effect. But it seems like every other month it catches up, then there's a delay and there's a bit of a lagging behind, but then it recovers. So it seems like as right now we've recovered a little bit on the earned income revenue, well, on the real estate revenue, but we're still not ahead of where we were supposed to be based on our projections to start the year.
Has tax collection been a big issue?
Well, I can't narrow it on tax collection. I know the revenues that we've been receiving. That's why we're working. And if your revenues are down, it is due to your receipts. But we're trying to figure out if that's just a delay in remittance due to possible lower staff levels, and our tax collector being the city working at the same capacity that we are with people working remotely, or if it's just due to significantly people not paying their taxes. So that's what we're trying to look at. For as of right now, it looks like we've caught up, but with that catching up effect, it seems like it may not be overall intake being down, but it may be a timing of the receipts. So that's what we're trying to look into.
Thank you.
Ms. Capretta, do you think
So,
that,
so this is, so the amounts of this, the one, so do they need, I just can't see them on the screen. It's very small. I'm trying to,
11.03 with heater need a
Right.
budget account line.
right. So we are gonna have to, pay that out of, some grant money, I guess. So we will, I guess, have to be paying that out of a grant fund.
I was not aware that it was the account line. Give me 1 second. I'll provide an account line.
And for 11.04, there needs to be an account line and an amount with Knepper Press.
is it something we can get in the next minute or something we should come back to later in the meeting? Can we come back to this?
You're on mute. Ron Joseph, you're on mute.
Sorry, wrong screen. I can give you an account line right now for this amount. So it can be paid from 3,300 2380 550.
Okay. Ms. Is that it's acceptable for both, or Ms. Capretta, do we still need something further from you?
The account line is acceptable for both.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, thank you.
And there's an amount in 11.04. It's just only in recommended action. It is and daily dollar amount. It's not in the subject or public content. So if that amount is correct, that just needs to be read in.
That amount is correct in 11.04, Miss Kennedy. Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, so did you want me to read it, or? It's $13,890.
All right, thank you. I don't believe
Good
there were any.
It's in
Yes,
public.
I wanted to ask if there were any further questions or comments on this section before we moved on. All right, hearing none, could I have a motion and a second to approve the committee report on business and finance, please?
So moved.
Terry, so moved. Up second.
Kevin Carter, Terry Kennedy. Thank you. Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please, on this report?
Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Gallagher,
Yes.
Mrs. Harmon,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Ms. Talafaro,
Yes.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson.
Yes.
Votes approved unanimously.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weiss. We're now going to move to the Human Resources Report, item 13.01, submitted by Mr. Bill Gallagher, the chairperson, and his committee. Are there any questions or comments on this report? All right, hearing none, could I please have a motion and a second to approve the Human Resources Report? I would imagine that Mr. Gallagher would make that motion.
One moment. Sorry,
Okay.
guys. I have to abstain on Article I, number 5. Thank
Okay.
you. The rest of the report's okay.
Okay, so Mr. Gallagher is.
You want to make a motion?
He's making the motion.
I'm going to make the motion that we accept the human resources report.
But I
Thank
missed making the second though.
Devin is seconding.
Devin, okay, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please, on Human Resources Report?
Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes, on the report as a whole, abstaining on I-5.
all right, Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mrs. Harmon,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Malafaro,
Yes.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson.
Yes.
Report's approved with the abstention so noted.
All right, thank you, Mr. Weiss. Item 16.01 and 16.02, the financial statements and controllers reports for the month ending August 31st, 2020 are before you this afternoon. Are there any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we'll now move to item 16.03, the EBE report for the September 2020, which is also before you this afternoon. Are there any questions or comments on this report? All right, thank you. I hear none. Item 17.01 is a resolution of the Board of Public Education of the School District of Pittsburgh authorizing the retention of counsel for litigation against Altria et al. Are there any questions or comments on this item?
This is Terry. I think that this is a wise decision to join in and file and participate the way it has been explained to the board. It cost us nothing to do this, and there will be a cost only if there's any settlement, which therefore we don't have any upfront expenses and there's no risk to the taxpayers. And there's a lot of benefit to our students if we have this, if they understand what's going on related to Jewel and the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy.
This is Ms. Harbin. Mr. Weiss, could you explain for the public so they understand why we're doing this resolution and then what we would be able to do if we win the resolution? I mean, if we win the lawsuit.
Yes, this is authorizing a lawsuit against Altria and other manufacturers and marketers of vaping products. It is a nationwide litigation program. About 70 school districts around the country have filed separate lawsuits. They're all being assigned to the Northern District of California for handling. Other districts in this region that have joined are North Hills School District, the McKeesport area, Butler, Mars, and some others. The lawsuit is seeking damages for the cost of installing vaping detection devices in school restrooms. It's very similar in concept to the tobacco litigation of some 20 years ago, except this is not a class action. It will also seek funding for education programs for students and families on the very real health dangers of vaping, particularly in this COVID environment. It will seek funds for training and a variety of other programs for school districts. This case is being handled by principally by a law firm in California, which is a national law firm called the F-R-A-N-T-Z firm. They have filed these suits around the country. And local coordinating counsel is the King McCandless firm in Butler, who represents a lot of school districts, practice similar to mine. Our office will be co-counsel on the matter, so we will have direct involvement in all negotiations. And as Ms. Kennedy mentioned, this is a contingent fee case where the France firm will receive 20% of any settlement if it's settled the first year, and 25% of any settlement if it's settled the second year thereafter. All costs of litigation will come out of the proceeds, so the district is not required to advance any funds nor pay any funds if there's no recovery.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. I think that's really important, and thank you for bringing this to us for a vote.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to have a motion and a second to approve this item.
Terry, so moved.
Ms. Falls, will you second?
Second, I'm sorry. I thought I was unmuted. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you so much. All right, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Mrs. Harmon,
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Talaferro,
Yes.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes,
Approved 9-0. Thank you.
thank you so much. All right, we move on to item 17.02, a new business item, reimagine school safety resolution. Any questions or comments at this time?
I have questions.
Go ahead, Mrs. Kennedy.
Okay, so first, I'd like to thank Ms. Harbin and Ms. Talaferro for reviewing and considering the comments and suggestions that Ms. Falls and I sent to you this summer. And we reviewed what your responses from August, and we were happy to see the responses. And then when you have the newer version that was sent to us last week, we were happy again to see many of our recommendations accepted. But we still have concerns, which I'm going to address here on behalf of Ms. Falls and myself. And please note, I'm only going to mention the areas of our concerns. If I don't mention an area, then that at this point, we're fine with that. And any page references I state are to the red line version of the resolution that was emailed to board members on Friday. All right, so I just figured those are my parameters. So first up is on page 2 and the first paragraph. And when I say, so Ms. Falls and I requested removing, and I'm going to quote, a highly discretionary offense that is subject to implicit and explicit bias, or end quote. Okay, so we believe that these words are a subjective opinion, and without reviewing the cases, we do not know if this opinion is true or false. So in response to the request, we received, it is a research-based statement, disorderly conduct is subject to bias, okay? But you did not provide us information to back up the claim that it is research-based. Can you provide us some information to back up this claim?
You want to just go through all of them, or do you want to do one at a time?
I think just doing one at a time, because I have comments on another paragraph, 2 other paragraphs on this page, and then I have on page 3. So
I don't have the red line version, so I don't know exactly which paragraph it is.
okay, I'm sorry. Okay, it's the
It's okay.
it's the
It's
one.
okay. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's the one that reads, whereas from the 2015-2016 school year through the 2019-20 school year, an average of 37% of the total student arrests and PPS are for disorderly conduct, a highly discretionary offense that is subject to implicit and explicit bias. And
so disorderly, here's my response, and I'm just gonna say, this is just me. But disorderly conduct includes one of the charges, one of the 4 charges in disorderly conduct is unreasonable noise. So would you say that the word unreasonable is subjective?
Yes, because that has to be measurable. So yes,
Yeah,
that is subjective, but okay.
Yeah, so I think this just happens to be one of those offenses where it's not like, is it on fire or is it not on fire? Did someone, you know what I mean? So I think that's what we meant, or that's what, that's how I interpret it in here, is that it's just one of those offenses that seems to be, that allows for some interpretation, some discretion, and there has been research. I don't have, if you would have asked me before, I would have brought something, but there definitely is research that has been, that shows that that is one of the most, I mean, it's a real criminal charge, but it's just one of those charges that it's not as clean cut, black and white.
Okay, I just think that, obviously this is a whereas, so it's not the now therefore be it resolved, but I just think it's nice to be able to cite references, but I can live with that. And it goes back to your point when we discuss code of conduct that we need to have better explanations. So I will, I just wanted to bring that up. All right, in the very next paragraph, which currently reads, whereas about half of PPS arrests of Black students, and then we put in parentheses 54% for Black girls and 42% for Black boys, and parentheses, in 2019 ultimately resulted in a charge of disorderly conduct, and then in parentheses, compared with just 10% and 20% of PPS arrests of white girls and boys respectively, end parentheses. So the question we had earlier that we sent to you in August, I think, or July, I can't remember, were these offenses with which the students were charged the same ones when comparing the percentages? And based on your response, we obviously needed to clarify. So and it's basically and I'm looking at the use of the words ultimately resulted in a charge of disorderly conduct. So without stating the reasons for arrest that lead to a charge, we have, anybody reading this data has no way of knowing if the offenses were similar, if not the same, or if they're very different offenses. So are we comparing apples and apples or apples and oranges when citing these numbers?
So I'll say that we just all voted yes on a contract to look at the data. The data that was given to us, that was shared by the district, didn't have the reasons. So now, if this resolution passes, we'll be able to look at data that has the reasons, and then we'll be able to answer that question. But right now, this is just showing the disproportionality between Black students, male and female, and white students, male and female, and we don't know the reasons. So I think that's one of the purposes of doing this resolution, so that we would be able to understand that.
Okay, I just think people need to understand that a blanket statement without knowing that, they can't assume that everybody was charged for similar, events. There could be very different events that ended up with the same charge. And so it may not be apples and apples, but it may be apples and oranges. And that's the point that we were trying to make. So, which again, this is a whereas versus a now therefore be it resolved. So let's see, now moving on to paragraph 3, which is also the last paragraph. So what it is the paragraph 3 under the now therefore be it resolved. And it states the administration will present the above information each month to the board in a publicly held meeting so that the board and community may monitor referrals to police, arrests, and citations. And that's talking about points 1 and 2, where there's a lot of disaggregated data. And so my concern is saying monthly, that it has to be publicly discussed. And this is it's because we spend, some people are, we spend time on KPIs, and those discussions could take 15, 30 minutes at times. And if we now add on this, I'm not saying it's important, but maybe have it so it's quarterly or or twice a year, but have it updated monthly on the website, and then also have it appear in our agendas as a non-voting item that can be checked and discussed, like we look at the MBE report monthly. But, and we can discuss it, or we can, like today, there was no discussion, but other months there's discussions. I think to say that we are going to publicly discuss it that it will be presented every month in a publicly held meeting, it doesn't say if it's going to be publicly discussed or not. And I think we need to have some parameters. And like I say, it is important to monitor, but also it's important to monitor student progress every month. But we don't discuss it, we don't have that every month per se. So I'm looking at the balancing. Well, we say this, and now we add on the next thing and the next thing, and the next thing you know, we're 2 hours just discussing important data, where it's important, but some of it can be a visual, if that makes sense.
Again, I think I look at this and interpret it as being more of a, a broad item so that we could decide later where we want to have it. And I don't think it has to be a discussion item, but I think it should be reported. I think this is the most egregious thing that can happen to a student in our care, is that they get arrested and they get put into the juvenile justice system. So I don't think it's unreasonable to at least, publicly say, these are the numbers. We look at the numbers of students that are expelled from our school district every month. And to me, this is worse than that. So if we're, trying to make sure that we are keeping our students in our schools, in our buildings, safe and supported, that is one of the numbers that I think shows that we're maybe not doing what we are intending to do. So I don't know if it has to be something that we discuss every month, but I think something that we report is important. Devin, I don't know.
I was going to say, this is vague then as written, because how do we know that the resolutions there's compliance with the resolution if we're vague? So the administration could put it on the website and just send us a pointer, and that would be acceptable. That's the thing. We don't clarify how we want it presented. And I think we need to have some guidelines, so everybody has a clear expectation and no misinterpretation based on assumption.
I mean, I think I also like to think that if we are working with the administration to ask them for the things that we need or we're looking for, we want, this kind of guides them to do that, and just being able to address if it comes up in a month or if it doesn't come. I mean, right now we're not approving or we're not, acknowledging, expulsions because there haven't been. So, we've gone months without having to focus on that particular item. So, I mean, I'd also like to know if you're offering suggestions of what you think it should be. I don't know how that would work in this case.
Well, that's why I was suggesting that we have it monitored, since it might be easy for the public, we put it in the agenda every month as a non-voting item akin to the financial reports, the MBE report. We don't vote on those, but it's there. We could discuss them or not. That's a recommendation I'm making. But I'm also, if we want to make sure it is discussed at least, let's say twice a year, add it to the KPI calendar. Although we've gotten away from it a little bit because of everything that's been going on, we have had a calendar of what KPIs, key performance indicators, for people who don't know what KPI means, what KPIs are presented to the board each month. And there was a calendar that was created and agreed on between the then board and administration a year or two back. And so, if we want to make sure there's at least some discussion, have it on there so we discuss it, or we just put it in board docs, like I say, as a non-voting agenda item. And I just think we should have a clear understanding how it's being presented, so there's no assumptions. Because we could walk away with the wording as is, and you have one expectation and I have a different expectation.
And I agree, Mrs. Kennedy. It should be a report, not something to be voted on. It just should be something that we are abreast of, whether it's monthly or quarterly. That's what it should be.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it needs to be voted on. I just think it's a non-voting information item.
So can we update this to have, say that it'll be added to board docs with the non-voting reports, or what is that, section 16?
I would assume it would have to be formally amended because it's on the floor for a vote at this time.
Yeah, my question, Mr. Weiss, if we leave it as it is, it's item number 3 on the first, now therefore be it resolved. Can we still do it that way? Because I don't know if we actually have to say it for it to be done that way. I think it's broad enough that we could do it that way.
In other words, like a friendly amendment.
Oh, I mean, I think number 3, and font here was not made for people of my age, but as I read this, it doesn't say that it's going to be board approved. It's just going to be presented, much as other reports are presented and not voted on. So I'm suggesting to the board that you do not need to amend this, because it doesn't say for board approval. It just says it'll be presented. So
Okay.
Okay, I just so everybody who is participating or watching the meeting today now knows the intent, and that will be in the minutes, because you know, again, you know, 10 years from now, we got to make sure people know what we meant, as opposed to subject to interpretation. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. Okay, so now on to page 3, which is further be it resolved. All right, so I would like, and I'm going to say what changes I want and then offer one amendment to add these changes versus do 3 different amendments. All right. So item 1 is to insert between ad hoc and community majority the words well-balanced. And I will add a definition as a footnote saying well-balanced is defined to be no more than one representative from any one community organization. And the reason behind that is to limit the number of participants from each organization for multiple reasons, including, but not limited to, keeping the committee a reasonable size, because committees are too large, it's very difficult to work, let alone agree on meeting times. And 2, giving participants an equal opportunity to express their opinions without feeling intimidated. So that is one item I'm going to add. Like I said, I'm going to do a motion after I go through these changes. The next is at the end, say after reimagine school safety, and I'm going to insert the words of district taxpayers, because I believe we need to make sure any community members are truly live in the community. So if they're not a district taxpayer, which means they do not live in our school district, then they, I'm sorry, but their opinion is nice, but I don't think they should be on the task force. And 3, on item 3, where we say define school safety, I believe we need to end it right there and remove the rest of the sentence, which says in terms of building positive school cultures and climates, because I think the task force members should not be, they shouldn't be constrained when making a definition. So they should be able to, if they want to define it in that terms, fine. If they want to define it in some other terms, fine. But we shouldn't be dictating how they wish to define school safety, because we don't know what everybody on the committee is going to think. And we want to make sure that they all have the ability to chime in with how that should be defined and then discussed. So with that said, this is, like I said, on behalf of Ms. Falls and myself, I'm gonna make a motion to insert the words well-balanced between ad hoc and community majority. Insert the words of district taxpayers between reimagine school safety and no later than, along with the definition of saying well-balanced is defined to be no more than one representative from any one community organization. Which, yeah, I spent the first district taxpayers, and then 3, delete everything after define school safety. So that is my motion, and if Ms. Falls is can unmute and second, that would be appreciated.
Surely do second that.
If I may ask, I think for clarity's sake, these amendments ought to be taken separately.
Okay.
We're going to have confusing votes on these possibly. So can we have the motion as to item 1 first? And
Okay.
then, I guess there were 3 items, item 2
Yes.
and item 3. I think it'll be a much clearer vote or votes in the minutes.
Okay, can we just still have it with myself as the making the motion and Ms. Falls as the second as we go through these, as we split it?
Fine with me.
Okay, so motion 1 is to insert well-balanced between ad hoc and community majority, and then have a footnote defining well-balanced, or stating well-balanced is defined to be no more than one representative from any one community organization.
And the motion is for the board is to amend this by adding the language that Ms. Kennedy has articulated.
Time for comment or discussion?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think well-balanced is hard to define. When we talk about well-balanced, we never have a well-balanced committee because there's always more district people. And
You've broken up, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear her either.
I don't know what I've gotten myself in. Oh, on a call. Is that camera on? Oh,
No, it's not.
Well, I'm sure we're missing it, but if I can just quickly share onto the taxpayer part.
No, we're not on that one. We're on the well-balanced, since Mr. Weiss wanted us to take these one at a time.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll be very hard to follow.
Yeah. I will say there was one comment that you made. I think it was under this part. So correct me if I'm wrong, and then I'll stop talking. But you mentioned something about keeping the committee of a reasonable size and that sort of thing. And I think that, so I'll say, like, and I would have been happy to have this conversation with anybody who would have reached out and asked, but I've thought a lot about this committee this task force or group as it would fall under the Safety and Operations Committee, which I'm currently chair of. And so I've been thinking a lot about this, and I've had conversations with other people about this, including other board members. And one vision that I actually really have is making sure, one, I understand, like, we don't need a committee of 50 people. Like, that's not doable, even just with coordinating times to meet and stuff like that. So I think my vision is that the Safety and Operations Committee would work with administration to be able to determine what is the number of committee members that we want to have, and who that representation should be, and thinking of a wide variety of that. And I've said this before, of like, not just district people, not just people from organizations, even like I want to see students and parents and people that represent the juvenile justice system in that conversation just as much as people. So I think the intentions of being able to work with and anyone being willing who wants to be a part of that on the board, as long as, we're no more than 4 board members in the committee meetings or, participation. I think that's really important. So that, I just want to share that. I don't know if that like changes your viewpoint. I'm not, I mean, the term well balanced, I get what the intention is, but I don't know how necessary it is. So more than to say that we want this to be a mostly community effort, and community doesn't just mean organizations. And so with the Safety and Operations Committee working with administration to be able to determine what would be the best, and also the input of other board members, and which I think I said in my email last week, is that we would want your input and recommendations for that too. So it would not just be like one person or a handful of people just deciding that, but that we would all be a part of that decision making.
No, and I appreciate it, but that's why I was defining well balanced. And when I say from any one community organization, that's not eliminating, let's say, students or whatnot, because obviously students should be on it. But what has happened in the past, there have been committees which have been dominated by some organizations, and people have been intimidated because they disagree, and they have been bullied. And they either been bullied in the meetings or outside of the meetings. Some of it's been passive and some of it's been aggressive. So if they have a very different opinion, they should feel comfortable in being able to state it without having multiple people from one organization who feel strongly in a different way arguing with them. So that was, I feel very strongly that, if I'm representing community group ABC, then nobody else from ABC represents ABC's position, and that's fine. I'm just saying, I'm not asking people what their positions are. I'm trying to make it so people are more comfortable and maybe they can have their views expressed without feeling intimidated, because that has happened on past committees. And I'm not going to go into the history.
Yeah. I understand that. I would say I think if there are organizations or things, that you feel concerned about, I mean, I think it's appropriate for you to be able to speak that into existence, and we be able to work through this as we're building this committee. No one person has to be a part of the committee either. There could be people that are better suited for this conversation that we know may not have, they may have different intentions or stake in the game.
Like I say, this is because this resolution is stating, it was saying ad hoc community majority. I wanted to make sure that we had some guardrails on that. And for me, we have to say well balanced. In with the way I defined it, be no more than one representative from each community organization. Now that means A+ schools. It means Black Girls Equity Alliance. It means Hilltop Education, whatever. I don't care which group and how they feel. And the idea is to give people feel like they're on equal footing, and it's not being they're not feeling ambushed. And I think people from multiple organizations could have the same view, and it could still happen that they feel ambushed. But if they're not sitting there surrounded by people from the same organization, they may feel more inclined to really state their true opinion. Okay. That's why I defined well balanced. I didn't want to leave it to be up for interpretation, because I think it's very important. And for me, the thing is we didn't define how the committee was being selected, other than say community majority. So and we've had other things since my all these years on the board where it has defined types of representation, how many or whatnot. And I think it's important that we make sure that there's not an overemphasis from some community groups at the expense of any other opinion.
So sorry, Devin.
No, you're fine, Pam. I was just saying I get it. Thank you.
Yeah, no.
Can I say something?
Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you, Directors Talaferro and Harbin, for bringing forth this resolution. Thank you, Director Kennedy, for sharing your thoughts on it to this point. I agree with some of what you said related to your amendments, but because we're talking about well balanced, I don't like um, very wordsy paragraphs that just drag on in words that get caught up in various meanings. And I don't think that, asking it to limit to one person for one particular organization or another is a reasonable effort. I think that this district has done a great job at creating a well-balanced groups related to other task force that we've had, particularly the suspension ban group, which is a task force that I push for, and the community schools working group. And so there, I think that that's getting a little bit deep into the wording of this particular resolution. I think that we all aim for a well-balanced task force. I don't think, but I do think that there are groups that work on this issue at a local level, a national level, more frequently than other, organizations may work on this particular issue. And so limited to one group from, pretty much local or national policy experts related to this topic, I just don't think is a fair and reasonable request. But I do think that they should take suggestions like on those other working groups from board members of people that we think may be a good fit to support kind of, what we want to see as the outcome to this resolution or what the next steps are as it relates to our, reimagining school safety. And so I do think that there's a way that we could incorporate, your feelings into this, Mrs. Kennedy. However, I'm not entirely sure this is exactly the strategy I would use to do that. One, from a compliance standpoint, like how do you monitor that? And then how is it, what if I represent two groups? So I think that there is some interesting caveats there, but I don't think that there should be a hard set limit. And that's all I'll say to the well-balanced piece, because that's what we're speaking about. Thank you.
And I appreciate it, but I will disagree that the suspension ban and community school committees were well balanced. I 100% disagree because there were people that were multiple people from some organizations and other people got shut out, and people that were of differing opinions did not agree and felt intimidated. I had the feedback on people who felt intimidated and didn't feel like they were being heard. So right then and there, I disagree, and that's exactly why. And I agree, there is an issue where people might be members of multiple organizations, but they can only represent one organization. I mean, I go to things, when I go to various meetings, I have various interests, but if I identify myself, I'm only going to identify as to what that interest is. So, so I appreciate your input, but to me, I'm going to stand firm that I needed to have no more than one person representing any organization that's represented on this task force. I mean, the community organizations. I can't.
I'm sorry. I know I wasn't going to say much because I'm very ill, but did this go out to the other board members with our suggestions?
No, because we were still finishing up our discussion this morning.
No, I mean, did Miss Del Taro and Miss Harbin pass it out to the other board members?
No, I didn't. That would be deliberation, I think. I don't know. You could have said it, I guess.
But you asked for suggestions and recommendations, so we did that. And I'm just saying, I'm just asking. And then this conversations or pieces of it could have been dealt with. So I mean, I think that's that kind of maybe is a missing step.
Well, that's deliberation.
I'm sorry.
I have a question on the same thing and this might be directed towards Mr. Weiss on point 1, conduct deep listening sessions with school administrators, teachers, parents, and students. Okay, if this resolution passes, is it just limited to those 4 groups?
I mean,
I believe that question was answered already. That
No, it wasn't answered, because when I asked you, how come paraprofessionals and school security's not in there? Can they be held out of these meetings?
No,
And I didn't get a good answer on that.
yeah. Well, I mean, what I told you is that it would be inclusive of all of those staff people. So I did answer your question, but
Not the way I wanted it answered, because it went off, and I heard that we are trying to keep school security and school police out of these meetings.
no, that's not. I think you should go back and read the email that I sent you. That's not
No.
exactly at all.
No, that's what they said. That's one of the groups is saying school police should not be part of any of these committees.
Right.
And since they're not on here,
School
I know that's a way to keep them out.
No, but I do believe that the conversation, again, you refer back to your message that I was inclusive of all those things. I think maybe we could have added a line staff. I don't think it was intentional. I think we try to hit all the major.
I would like see, I can see where it's going is how we represent everybody in this district. Teachers, children, parents, community members. And if we want to have courageous conversation and we want to hear everything. And if we stack these task force, you're going to hear, you're not going to get the whole thing. And paraprofessionals, they spend a ton of time with our children with disabilities. They spend a ton of time with kids, and we don't have them on there. And I asked about that, and I would like to see that included also. I don't want anyone being shut out that wants to be part of this.
I would agree with you, Mr. Gallagher, but I think that what we see here is a language issue. I would have assumed that those rural groups were included in, school administrators and other areas. But with you being a former, a retiree of the district, when you say role groups, you guys break them down very specifically in ways that I don't think everybody in the general public always understands.
Mr. Carter, I heard at the public hearing, no school police to be involved in this, these task force. It was stated.
I know that is what people wanted, but I think that is ultimately up, our decision as a board.
I wanted it in the resolution, so it doesn't get,
Okay, so Mr. Gallagher, you know what? So here, there was no intention to leave anybody out. And what the public says in a public hearing is they're not the ones writing the resolution.
I think one of them helped write the resolution.
No, come on. Let's wait, this is getting good. Okay, let's take a step back.
Would you, Ms. Harbin and Ms. Telfair, would you be amenable to saying that we would just conduct deep listening sessions with district employees, parents, students?
I'm fine with adding staff. Like it really was, that was an oversight. The thought was it would be people from that school building that have police in their building. So staff in there, adding all staff, whatever staff. If you want the lunch people in there, that's
exactly.
fine.
Well, no, exactly, because
I agree.
Have you ever done lunchroom duty?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you know lunchroom duty can be pretty.
I agree.
Pretty scary sometimes.
And you guys know that as I am a stickler for parliamentary procedure, we are actually in a discussion on an open item that we have to vote on.
That's what I was going to say next. So that, and I see Mr. Weiss is ready to come in there, but we are discussing now an amendment to the resolution, and that is not part of the amendment. So let's get back on track.
I understand what people are saying here, and this is not any comment on that. I'd like to keep the discussion confined to this First Amendment so we can get through that and then vote on it. And then we can deal with anything else the board wants to deal with. But let's try to get through these amendments so we can have some order to this.
Right. So I want to get through this amendment and my next 2 amendments. So to me, I can't have it so that it's stacked with groups, some groups and other groups are feeling intimidated. And so, yes, we can suggest members of the task force to administration, and to the Safety and Operations Committee. But ultimately, just because we make suggestions doesn't mean that we know who's being accepted and who isn't, and for the reasons, let alone if, let's say, two of us are recommending different people from the same organization, well, but one of our recommendations shouldn't be accepted.
Okay,
Which
so
is, you know,
yeah, can I respond to that? I understand where you're coming
Yes.
from, Ms. Kennedy, and I think, I'm always about making our processes better, learning from what we've done in the past, and I hear what you're saying. So my recommendation, instead of adding the well-balanced, because I do worry, some people wear different hats. They might be a member of a community group or the local task force and be a member of something else. And I think we're going to start having these like games, like, well, I'm actually from this place. And so how about we agree as a board of 10 that we will look at the list before we make it final and that we come to an agreement. So we come to a consensus on who's on that. I'm fine with that. This is really not about keeping people out or stacking the deck. It's really about getting the adults and the students impacted in a room to start having some conversations. And so, Ms. Telefaro, I don't think you had would have any objection to that either. Let's just get this going. And I'm fine with, people agreeing, suggesting who should be on there, and then we can all come to an agreement on that before it's public.
That's the way it's supposed to be. That's great.
Right. But then yeah, and I do realize there are people that represent multiple organizations, but you know what? When we make recommendations, we're recommending so-and-so for this organization. And that has happened. We've had that kind of stuff in the past. And I'm still concerned that we go through as a group of 10, the list of recommendations, and some of us get shut out and other committees, some organizations still get overrepresented. And I am very concerned about that. And I need to have something in writing as a part of this resolution that will guarantee that that does not happen. That is a non-negotiable for me, whether it's this wording or something else that someone suggests. I have to have a guarantee.
Well, we have this amendment before us here, so.
Yeah.
Is everyone clear on what the amendment is?
Yeah, it's clear. It's talking about well-balanced and making sure that there's not more than one person from any particular community organization on this task force.
Okay, are we in a position to vote now?
I hope so.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Ms. Kennedy and Ms. Falls. We're going to vote on this amendment now. Mr. Carter?
No.
Ms. Edwards?
No.
Ms. Falls?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
You're muted, Mr. Gallagher.
Gallagher, I think you're muted. Could you vote, take your mute off?
I'm having trouble with this, Mr. Weiss, amending this. I think we should go back to the drawing board. I'll say yes.
Okay, thank you. Harbin?
No.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Salafaro?
No.
Mr. Udine? Mr. Udine?
Mute.
Mr. Udine, how do you vote on this first?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Ms. Wilson?
Oh God, I'm the time. I'm going to go with no.
And the amendments to 4 to 5. And now the
Okay.
second amendment.
The second amendment is to insert the words of district taxpayers after reimagine school safety and before no later than.
Would you be amenable to a different word outside of taxpayer, like city resident?
No, because our school district includes the borough of Mount Oliver.
District resident?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, district resident. Okay, how's that? That's fine. I can accept that. What about you, Ms. Falls?
I can accept that, yes.
Okay, so the amendment now reads district resident as opposed to district taxpayer. That's the amendment for the board now.
Can I just make one comment? And Ms. Kennedy, I don't know how much this will change your thought behind this one, but my only concern is, again, some of the input that I've received from, board members and conversations that I've had with people in my district, is the vision to see, perhaps people that work within the juvenile justice system could be, lawyers or representatives from law groups that work directly with a lot of students, dealing with arrests and citations, as well as just other staff or employees. So that might make me nervous because it's no guarantee that those people might live in the city or not.
Ms. Talafero, I was under the impression that this was an additive, not it was just adding that it would also be open to district residents, not it would replace the ability to bring other people in.
Yeah, it sounded to me excluding people who are not district residents, and that is what my is. If it's
and that is my thing, because I'm tired of getting email and people and other stuff from people. We've gotten email from folks that don't even live in our state telling us what we should be doing. I'm sorry, but I think if you're not going to make the commitment to live in our city, and some of these organizations and like the court workers and whatnot, the DHS folks, they have employees that live in the city that work in these groups. And I feel very strongly that you should be a district resident to talk about what we should be doing with our schools.
I don't think we would be hard pressed to find people in those job categories that are city residents who work with our kids all of the time. I don't think that that's a difficult thing to find.
What about alumni that no longer live in the city? Those types of things. I mean, I get saying, Ms. Wilson, but I just feel like it bogs down the wording, bogs it down, and kind of all wrong. That concerns me.
Well, like I said, I had a different thought around what she was proposing and what is being discussed at this moment.
Yeah, I basically believe that anybody that's not representing the administration should be a district resident. Because I feel that they should have a say in what's going on. These like the folks that work with some of these students, they have people that live in the city that work with those groups, and maybe I'm sorry.
Very similar to the public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
but
which, by the way,
we have teachers that don't live in the district, and that's the state law. So that would exclude any teachers.
Well, that's why I said outside. So I said outside administration. So outside of the school district employees. But the thing is, the administration is going to name the administration stuff. I'm talking. So I want the district. I want the community members to be actually in the community. I don't want them to be outside of our school district.
And this would not include external experts.
The task force can talk to external experts and get information from them, but that doesn't mean that they have to participate they don't have to be a part of the task force. Just like you have an expert witness.
Right. I'm just trying to see what the limits were that you were discussing.
Yeah, I'm talking about for members, the members of the task force. And quite frankly, yeah, we have teachers and stuff that live outside the city, but guess what? And they're allowed to. God bless them. However, you know what? We have a lot of staff that are teachers and administrators that live in the city. Just like with some of these other community support organizations, we ought to be able to find more than enough employees that would fill the role for administration and other areas if we want them on the task force. I'm sorry, but I think that, we're talking about our city schools, and the city residents should be,
What'd you
or the
forget?
district residents should be the ones that are on this task force.
Okay, so the amendment is to have district resident as a requirement for to be on the task force. We prepared to
Well,
vote on this?
It's of district residents, plural, because it's a task force of district residents.
Right, yes, correct.
Okay.
I think we're ready to vote, Mr. Weiss.
Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Can you explain to me exactly what we're voting on?
we're voting on having a requirement that members of the task force have to be district.
That they live inside the city.
They have to live within the school district, because remember, Mount Oliver is part of the school district. They would have to live within the school district.
Okay, yes.
Ms. Falls,
Yes.
Gallagher,
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Harbin,
No.
Mrs. Kennedy,
Yes.
Talaferro,
No.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Okay, that amendment is approved 7-2. So when we get to the main motion, the fact that the task force membership has to be confined to district residents will be part of that resolution. So we now have the third resolution, the third
Just
amendment. Can you explain
yes,
it?
the third amendment is going down to item 3 on this page. Just ended after define school safety and remove everything else. And the purpose of that amendment is to not put any constraints on the committee and how they wish to define school safety.
So can I just explain? Yeah, so the purpose of that was actually so that we don't talk about school safety in terms of, putting up the metal detectors and like that kind of stuff. It was more around the culture and climate and building a school culture, as opposed to the safety of like barriers and barricades and metal detectors and equipment, that kind of stuff.
That's all well and good, but again, we're telling the committee how they have to make definitions. All right, we're already saying evaluate the effectiveness of current school safety practices, which would include that. But in some cases, they might want to define school safety with whatever way, and I don't think we should dictate the terms in which they have to define school safety. We're already recommending.
I would like to say that.
Agree. If you're gonna form a task force, and that task force, that should be their decision what the parameters are.
Well, technically, it is the decision of the people forming the task force what the parameters are. So if we want them to define school safety by a specific or certain measure and limit it to just that particular measure, we're well within our confines to construct a resolution that does just that. If we want it broader, then we say we want it broader. If we want it more narrow, then we say we want it more narrow. But that is the job of the people who want to seek the recommendations that the task force is going to return to us. And so if we want to limit it to, the area of, climate and culture, then you know, the recommendations are going to be focused on improvement specifically for climate and culture. And so if we want a more broader sense of it, then I think we have to open that. That's I think a different conversation. But I do think it's well within the writers of the resolution to define the parameters of what they want to see as a return, as you know, as a result of passing said resolution.
I can't hear Mr. Carter.
I was going to say, I understand what Mr. Carter was saying, that it is up to Ms. Harbin and Ms. Talaferro to make write this the way they want. But I'm also adding where I find this to be an issue. And I think it needs to be broader.
Any other questions on the amendment to end the sentence in number 3 after the word safety?
I have a question. I'll ask Ms. Talaferro. Do you think if we limit it at define school safety, and then will that even make it like we could even get a more dynamite definition, leaving it open with all these good people we get involved in on the task force? They could come up something even better without being limited. Do you think we should give them a broad paintbrush, a broad brush to paint with?
I mean, thank you for asking me that question, Mr. Gallagher. I mean, I guess to me, the request is, I guess I don't see it that deeply. I think that, like Mr. Carter said, like as the people who wrote the resolution and the expectations, or at least the conversations that can be had between the Safety and Operations Committee and administration and said people that we choose, they can define school safety however they want. I think those are, just some, I think that's the direction that we need to go to, because the definition of school safety will help us to build positive school culture and climates. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the point of redefining or defining that as a term. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of what is on my mind at this time.
Right. I think if we leave it broad, define school safety, that's their task, and they could come out with stuff that the 9 of us might have never even thought of. So I like it broad, just define school safety.
I don't disagree with it one way or the other. I just think that it's a conversation for the authors more so, and then we amend it as such. So I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I can go with the definition that's broad or more narrow. I guess I'm more curious about the intent.
And like I said, the intent was to leave it open to the task force to not have any constraints on how they're defining it.
So do you see, Mr. Gallagher, if it's broad, I mean, do you see that the task force would be, coming back to us saying that we should have, instead of metal detectors, we have new things in front of the building to protect us from outside? I mean, that's why we just put school safety and climate, because just to limit it from being a whole thing about equipment and that kind of stuff.
No, I see. No, like I'm going with, as a person who used to have to write rules, and or not. I didn't use the word rules. I'd use guidelines or suggestions, and I think you can really make this very positive. Very, very positive. I know I shared with you, I was the most heartbroken guy, man. First time I had to walk through a metal detector, but realistically, I had to walk through a metal detector. So I'm not even thinking in that term. I'm thinking of just, they could just come up with I don't want to limit them. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to limit them anyway. And I think when you put a little thing in and people start thinking, just let them go for it. Just say define school safety, and they might come up with some great ideas. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilson. It's a roll call on amendment number 3, which is sentence number 3 to end at the word safety. Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Carter.
Ms.
Yes.
Pauls?
Yes.
Gallagher?
Yes, sir.
Harbin?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Farrow?
Yes.
Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Okay, so that amendment passes, so the main motion now.
Before we get to the main motion, could we make a friendly amendment without having to go through this whole process for number 1 under the further be resolved? Instead of saying with school administrators, teachers, just say with school district employees. That way that covers paraprofessionals as well as others and you know, school, what am I?
Can we just add staff?
You could say school administrators or school staff or school district. I don't want administrators and teachers right now. Just say school staff will be fine or school district employees, you know, something like that.
That's fine with me.
Okay. I just don't want to just spell out administrators and teachers. That's all.
Yeah,
Does that work for Mr. Gallagher?
a simple fix.
Yes,
Yes.
it does. Yes, it does. Because I said we got to open it up to everybody. It gets a paycheck from.
All right.
Pittsburgh Public Schools.
So we can just say school staff.
Mr. Kennedy, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
School
Okay.
staff and
Well-
just take out administrators and teachers.
While we're on the document as a whole,
And now we can move on. They said that was okay, so we can move on to the document as a whole. Yes.
on the document as a whole, I want to thank Ms. Talaferro and Ms. Harbin for the work they did in bringing forward this resolution. I think, however, that the resolution attempts to gloss over the role of the institutional racism as practiced by the administration. And I don't think that we will be able to solve the real problems of school safety if we're not willing to confront institutionalized racist practices and identify who the perpetrators are. And I think this resolution tiptoes around criticizing the superintendent and the administration. I think that if this was a white superintendent we were talking about, and given these statistics, I think we would be raising holy hell. But let me finish.
Sure.
Mine. I think that as we go forward, we have to be willing to criticize even our friends and people who we are in close collaboration with in order to tell the truth. And I think that this resolution fails to do that. Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Dean, your point is well taken. But may I ask you why you have not submitted something like this as a resolution?
Your question is out of order. We're discussing the resolution that's on the floor.
No, the question is not out of order. You brought it up.
It's out of order. I do plan to make a generalized amendment to the overall resolution to make it more anti-racist. I believe as a school board, We want to be an anti-racist school board. I intend to do that. I don't want to make amendments here and there. I want to make a generalized amendment or addition or a separate motion altogether. So I will be doing that. Thank you, Ms. Falls. And maybe you would like to join me.
Mr. Odine, I have offered my services to you many times. So yes, sir, I would be glad to do that with you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, is that going to happen in the next 5 minutes? Because we have to vote on this tonight.
No, it is not going to happen in the next 5 minutes. We don't have to vote. We can vote on this and still make amendments later. We're not restricted to making amendments before it passes. Unless I'm mistaken, Mr. Weiss.
Certainly if this passes and the board wants to consider some amendatory language at a later time, it's like any other legislative action. So before the board now with the amendments that have been approved.
Are we going to vote on the whole thing right now?
That's what we're looking at right now, Bill. That's what we're looking at.
Okay, I just have you know, one thought, you know, and I really appreciate the fine job and the tremendous effort that Ms. Talaferro and Ms. Harbin you know, put into this document, and all the extra hours and, you know, the meetings and everything they did. You know, you did a great job. The only thing I have you know, a problem with is in the beginning, you know, like we almost like demonize some of our employees, you know, with blanket statements, and I don't like that. You know, when we go to, let me see if I can find it on my thing. We're talking about, you know, interaction with our school police officers, and you know, I know that so many of our security staff and school police officers do a wonderful job. I've seen it in person. I've been involved with them. There's many on staff that I actually taught and coached, and their job, they said why they wanted to become a member of school security and police was because they wanted to make a difference and they wanted to help kids. And I believe, you know, I don't want to give any names out, but the professional that runs the women's group at Bashir High School is like a legend in our community. And I think, you know, we left all of that out. You know, we are tasked with building on positives. And I think, you know, sometimes, you know, we don't. And that's the only problem I have, you know, besides the stuff we correct. The problem with this resolution is I've seen so many people do good stuff. So many people go the extra mile. And I think we sort of demonized them in this, and we did not point out, you know, you know, we didn't point out anything good when we should have. And, you know, I wish we would have done that. Thank you.
So Mr. Gallagher, I don't think you're looking at the final version. We did take input. We got two board members gave us input, Ms. Kennedy and Ms. Falls, and they did have recommendations to take out a couple of the whereases that I think were, they felt the same thing that you did, which that wasn't the intention, but you know, if that is how people were reading it, then Ms. Talaferro and I agreed to take those out. So I don't think there's anything left in there, but if you can tell me which paragraph.
Can you scroll down? Keep going. All right, start. You're good. You're good. Oh, it's off for this one. It's on my one on my phone. Thank you, Ms. Harbin.
You're welcome.
Ms. Harbin, I also would, Ms. Talavera, I really would like to thank you for taking quite a few of our suggestions and recommendations. And again, I just want to say that sometimes, it's a little difficult to understand something if you don't know the history, which I appreciate you recognizing the fact that Miss Kennedy and I have been on the board and have gotten to some of these decisions in a certain, in a certain way in a certain time. So I do want to thank you for appreciating our input. And we were delighted to do it. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Weiss.
We're voting on the main motion as amended. Mr. Carter,
Yes.
Ms. Edwards,
Yes.
Ms. Falls,
I'm voting on the resolution as a whole as it currently amended, but again, making sure that we are involved with the determination of committee members. So yes, as a whole, but I am stating that on record.
thank you. Mr. Gallagher,
Yes, and thank you everyone for that was outstanding work. Thank you.
Ms. Arbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Kennedy,
You're muted.
Sorry, I try and play by the rules. Sorry. Yes, on the resolution as amended with the same stipulation as Ms. Falls, that I'm going to hold you guys to letting all the board members help determine the committee members. Thank you.
Salafaro,
Yes.
Mr. Dean,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
The resolution as amended is approved.
And just for Miss Getty's notice, Mrs. Kennedy and Miss Falls were the makers of the motion and the second of the motion on everything that we were looking at today. If I'm correct, am I incorrect? Miss Kennedy and Miss Falls, would you be the motion and the seconders of this overall agenda, or a motion or not?
I'm willing to. I just thought that Ms. Harbin and Ms. Calafaro, that one of them would be wanting to make the motion and second it, but I'm fine since we were doing the other motions.
Yes,
I'm fine too. Works for me. Yep, it works for me, Ms. Wilson.
We're fine.
Sure.
Let's.
All right, Dr. Hamlet.
Who is
Dr. Hamlet?
going to be in a minute to make the
Oh,
motion?
it'll be Mrs. Kennedy and Miss Falls.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Dr. Hamlet?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So first of all, I want to say thank you to the board for approving the contract for RMC to conduct analysis of the available police data. This analysis will provide an independent external examination of our police calls for service, arrest, and citation. We talked about this very thing last week during the Black Girls Equity Alliance Town Hall. We discussed this very matter of doing a better job in understanding the sources and causes of these inequitable juvenile justice engagements. This resolution tonight, along with the work that the administration is already currently doing, will send a message to the community, will send a message to the state about we're serious, letting them know we're serious about understanding our data and doing better by our children. That's the focus. Number one, let's get back to the focus and really understand what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to eradicate arrest, citations, and out-of-school suspensions and racial disparities that exist in Pittsburgh public schools. The work we're currently doing, if you don't understand, let's talk. But the information is out there. We've done significant work and we're doing more. This is not an ending. This is a beginning of the work that needs to be done. The deep work that needs to be done to understand what the root causes are, and then begin to eradicate those root causes that cause negative outcomes for our children. So I just want to again thank the board for the support in the RMC analysis, and say we're ready to do the work. Let's work together to make this happen and for a better place for our children. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Hamlet. And I might point out that these issues that we're dealing with didn't just happen in the last 4 years. This is something that we've been dealing with for a long time.
Yeah. And so to your point also, as people like to throw out things, that are negative and not understanding, understand the work we're doing, understand where we come from and what the data is saying right now. The data is moving in the right direction. Is it fast enough? Definitely not fast enough for me, but it's moving. And as they say, we're flying the ship, flying the plane and building at the same time. As we realign Pittsburgh Public Schools.
I don't know what I've gotten myself into, but Eric was supposed to be here at 5:30.
We're hearing somebody's conversation background. Okay, Dr. Hamlet, were you finished?
Yeah, I'm finished. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. All right. We've come to the point in this legislative meeting, and it's about 10 minutes to 6. But do we have any announcements to be brought before us this evening that do not require a legislative vote?
Miss Wilson, it's Miss Falls.
Go ahead, Ms.
I really have to apologize. I did have some remarks I wanted to make about Miss Jean Fink, but I'm really not up to it right now. So I ask if I can hold my announcements until another time.
Certainly.
Okay. And again, I just will always pray for our military, past, present, and future. Thank you, Miss Wilson.
Certainly. Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Telfair.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. So first I want to thank my board colleagues for joining my vision and what I hope we can do with the Reimagine School Safety resolution. And so I think that I had other words to say, but I won't say them, but I thank you all because I think this is a great start. It's not necessarily the work that, everybody wants us to do, but I think we have to take the steps that are necessary for us in this district, and our school district looks much different than those nationally and those who have been able to make bolder decisions based off of their circumstances. So I think this is a good direction for us, and I'm glad that we can all work together to do that. And then the second thing, I shared this during agenda review, and I shared it last month with another organization, but I just want to lift up Kia Ingram, who is a school security aide at Brashear High School, and her organization through Cultivating Resilient Youth and the FIA Girls Mentoring Program. And Mr. Gallagher, I think, was alluding to her in some comments earlier, but the work that she has done in this school district is tremendous. The impact that she has on the young women is incredible. I've seen it. I've shared in that with her. I've talked to her. I've spoken before her, before her students before, and a lot of the students that she worked with also I've worked with, and she's done incredible things. And I say this often, and I'll say it again, that this is the type of work, especially when it comes to mentorship, that we need to be doing district-wide. It's a privilege that Brashear has to have organizations like One Nation Mentoring, the Way organization, and Cultivating Resilient Youth. But it's would be an even more advantage if we were able to do this type of work throughout the district. So I just want to, lift her up as we were able to pass her contract tonight. But I'm just really grateful for that work, because this is the things that we need, the support that our students need, and I'm happy to be a part of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Telfair. All right, anyone else? Those are the two people that I know had something to say. Anyone
I have
else?
my hand up.
Yes, I do. Okay,
Saul,
Mr. Udine, you
see
go
it.
first.
Who?
Yeah, Mr. Udine, go ahead. Go ahead.
Who?
You, Mr. Udine.
Oh, thank you. I just had a question as to whether we will have an opportunity to have some conversation with the contractor who will be collecting the police data as they gear up for their work.
Dr. Hamlet.
There's times in the past when we have had some interaction, some exchange with contractors who were coming on board. I was just wondering if this contractor would be available to have some conversation with school board members who wish to engage with them.
We can look into that. We can get back with you based on what they tell us. So we can definitely look
Thank
into
you.
Okay,
Okay.
is that it? All right, then Ms. Kennedy, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to reiterate my thank you to Ms. Harbin and Ms. Talaferro for the work they put in to the safety resolution, for folks who were involved at the beginning and heard some of their earlier thoughts months ago to the point we are now. I can honestly say that along the way, they made changes, even from early discussions till we got to the first draft, and from the first draft to the final draft. So even though some of us are may have been painful for some people, I think it was overall a good process. They were willing to listen and not only listen to our feedback, but give responses, especially if they didn't agree to something. And I, whittled down just my remaining issues. There's some of the stuff I accepted, even though it wasn't what I requested or what Ms. Falls and I requested, because I had to get to the meat of what was important after, they did everything else. So I want to reiterate my thanks that they put a lot of work into this, and we, our changes notwithstanding, we should recognize the effort they put in. And so I'd like to give my thanks to them again, and then thank everybody for being willing to listen to the reasons that Ms. Falls and I had on our remaining issues and discussing the proposed amendments, and passing 2 of the 3. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy. Ms. Harbin?
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. First, I want to recognize one of our board colleagues, Ms. Director Talaferro. Director Talaferro has been recognized by the Pittsburgh Magazine as 40 under 40. So congratulations, Ms. Talaferro. That's pretty exciting. I'd love to be under 40. I remember those days. But also, I do want to thank all of my board colleagues and Dr. Hamlet and Ms. Furby Jones and Dr. Dwyer. There were a lot of people that worked to make sure that this resolution, Ms. Capretta, trying to think who else was involved, Chief Brown, trying to make sure that we could get a resolution that we can all agree to. Was a little bit hard, but I think at this point, I think we just need to understand that some of the conversations we're going to have going forward for this subject and other subjects are going to be hard, and there's going to be some tough conversations that we're going to have. But I think as far as this resolution goes, we've gotten to a place where we are going to have some data, and that will help us better understand the problem. And then we can have a task force that we all agree to that can make recommendations so that we can make informed policy decisions to make sure that we have all of our students. I mean, we have a responsibility to make policy decisions that ensure that all of our students thrive. So I think, I think we're there, but we definitely have to understand that some of these hard conversations, especially the one Mr. Udine brought up, is that some of this we are going to have to confront that the system of school safety as it is right now is impacted by systemic and institutional racism, because all of the things in our district are impacted by that and in our community. So we can't ignore that, and I don't expect that anybody will. And I'm excited to dig in and have these conversations and make sure that we have policies and practices in place in our school district so that all of our students can thrive. So that's all I have to say. But thank you, everybody, and let's keep this moving and keep going.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
Ms. Edwards?
This is Veronica. Pam and Devin, congratulations on putting together a resolution that we can all live with. I know it was tough. It got tough along the way. Some of the language had to change. Some of the tactics had to change. But I hope through this, we learn to respect and appreciate each other a little bit more, because as colleagues, it takes all of us to do a good job for our children. So I want to say thank you also to my colleagues who in the 11th hour came through, that we can do it. This just shows us as a board that we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Does either Mr. Carter or Mr. Gallagher have any announcements this evening?
Yeah, Miss Wilson, just
Go
one
ahead.
thing. We're kicking off the fall sports this weekend. And, you know, a lot of people put a lot of work in throughout the district, and hats off to Miss Arnold and, you know, Pittsburgh Public Schools athletic director. She did a yeoman's job, and everybody else involved. I was in District 8 meeting yesterday, and a lot of good stuff being done. And also I want to give you a salute, Miss Wilson. You are a leader, and you've got us, you know, this was great. This is difficult work, but it's very, very rewarding. You know, we always had the saying, like when you're in the coach's office, whoever has the chalk last wins. And, you know, we worked through this, and, you know, we got ourselves a very good resolution that we can live with. Us old veterans that have been in the school system, you know, we've seen systemic racism everywhere. I've seen it in different states, you know, going to ball games, you know, and the stuff that our kids go through. So I think it's you know, everybody deserves a little pat on the back today, but the sleeves got to get rolled up, because it's going to get really hard. But that's why we're here. You know, people, you know, on the outside, you should do it this way, you should do it that way, you know, but we know the work that has to be done. And I think we are on the right track. You know, we're in for a long haul with this, with the way the whole system situation is now. But I think we're on the right track. Our kids are going to appreciate the things that we're doing for them. And also, you know, a heartfelt thanks to all you guys, Miss Talaferro, Miss Harbin. You guys did a great job. That's the way to stick to your guns and work through it, you know. And as everybody says, you know, we are a team of 10, and you know, that's what it takes. And you know, we'll get this rocking and rolling, and you know, make Pittsburgh Public Schools the world-class education system that it should be. Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Carter, do you have anything? All right. I just want to make one thing. We had a press conference on Monday at Faison Elementary School. The city of Pittsburgh has received a grant called Safe Routes to School. And this year, Faison, Arlington, and Martin Luther King, along with, I believe, 2 Propel charter schools, are involved in this Safe Routes to School initiative. And there's going to be a lot of activities talking about being safe on your way to school and home. They'll have some walks, they'll have some bicycle rides, and quite a few other activities will be planned as the year goes along. Next year, the Safe School Routes to School, this initiative will be expanded to other schools next year. So we're just really pleased that this grant was received by the city, and that they are immediately working with schools. And they said it is kind of funny that we have this grant right now when nobody's actually in school buildings, but it gives them the opportunity to plan for as we move forward. So I'm just really pleased that the city of Pittsburgh has done this and working with us in collaboration with the Pittsburgh Public Schools. So at this time, I believe we're coming to the end of our meeting, and we need to have a motion and a second to adjourn today's meeting.
Ms. Wilson, I actually have about 4 more hours of stuff I need to present.
That's all right, Mr. Carter. We're just gonna bypass you this time, buddy. we're gonna have to kick you to the curb. So, but I will take.
So moved to adjourn.
I was going to say, I am going to take Mr. Carter's comments as the motion to adjourn.
Okay, so I'll second.
Mrs. Kennedy will second. All right, all those in favor of adjourning today's meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so this meeting is technically adjourned. Please be safe as much as possible, everyone.
Thank you.
And good night.